Good morning. My name is Steve Bauk. I'm president of Solution Synergy, and I'm very pleased to have you join us for our presentation today. I want to also thank you for sharing your learning goals or areas of interest when you registered for the event, as it greatly helps us focus on your questions and areas of interest. I forwarded this information on to Vikas, our presenter today, and so hopefully we will address most of your questions. If there are additional questions, we will open the floor later at the end of the presentation. We are recording this presentation and we'll share it with you as well. As for my background, I've been in the healthcare technology space for over 35 years. I've worked in the payer, the provider side. I was a member of the American College of Healthcare Executives for over 25 years and am currently a fellow of the HIMSS Worldwide organization. Just a little bit about Solution Synergy. We're specifically focused on three cybersecurity niches within the healthcare industry. Those areas are certificate lifecycle automation. We use the AppViewX application, managing internal and external certificates. Just as an FYI, we will be having a presentation, a webinar similar to this one, on the AppViewX application next Friday, June 28th. We also obviously do the IoT connected device security solution, which you're going to have an opportunity to learn about today. And then we also originally started as an identity access management solution utilizing HID Global, KSI security keyboards, RFIDs, and a multitude of other solutions. Finally, we've built a consulting business around those three areas and offer those as well. When we look at the IoT security industry, any number of vendors can scan your network, detect all the devices, profile and categorize them, and ultimately assess their vulnerability or risk. With this in mind, what differentiates them from everyone else? Well, in my view, there are four major areas that are of importance. First, Securolytics' deployment model is completely different than other competitors. Securolytics uses a local appliance to collect the data instead of network traffic tap, which means that you plug in a collector into the mirror port of a network switch, and it actually copies the live packets through their collector and sends that very sensitive data to the vendor's cloud. Obviously, there is a concern that this PHI data, live packet data, could be intercepted during transmission. Second, Securolytics is the only vendor that provides a SmartBlock technology. This means that you have intelligent control over the IoT device to the extent that you can actually optionally shut down specific ports while allowing the machine to continue operating. Pricing is based upon hospital size versus the number of IoT devices. This creates a much more predictable annual expenditure versus being dictated by a growing volume of IoT devices. And finally, many of the hospitals in the industry today are combining their biomed departments with their IT department. And biomed departments typically have no cybersecurity experience and rely on IT. IT has no experience with biomed devices. And therefore, the tool from Securolytics provides, if you will, the matrix for both of these organizations to communicate effectively and operate a successful strategy for securing all their IoT devices enterprise-wide.
So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Lee, co-founder of Securolytics, and I'm sure he'll get you much more excited.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. Hopefully my audio is coming through well for everyone. As Steve said, my name is V. Singla. I'm the co-founder of Securolytics. Thanks for joining. You guys have taken time, everyone on the call has taken time out of their schedule, very much appreciated. Love questions. You can see in the Zoom if you have a question, just raise your hand, we'll get that and certainly get you answers to those questions. I grew up in Tennessee, so I grew up on the East Coast. I grew up watching Knight Rider and Dukes of Hazzard and the A-Team. I mean, those are some of my favorite shows. I've been in IT security for a long, long time, 20 years. And I have a track record with startups. Most recently, I helped Securolytics took that one public. Prior to that, worked with Cipher Trust, which was acquired by Secure Computing, and then McAfee, and then Intel. So a lot of time in the security space. And today, I've actually been working with Securolytics for a number of years, but my partner on the East Coast, and I founded the company a couple of years ago. So again, thank you for joining. Working with Steve and his team has been great, and hopefully we show you something interesting. Couple things. I want to focus on two areas. First, I want to focus on the business case for kind of protecting these connected medical devices that you have. And the second area I want to focus on are really strategies for actually securing them. So many people will say, oh, I can tell you what's on the network, or I can show you some of the problems you have. Well, that's great. We all have problems, but can you actually solve them? Because if you can't do that, then at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. So I was at, this is a true story actually, I was at a cocktail party not too long ago, and someone asked me, they said, well, what's the state of security? And I kind of asked him, so what do you mean the state of security? Are you asking if Equifax has lost all our data? They have. Are you asking if Marriott has lost all our passport information? Well, they have too. But no, they said, well, what do you guys do? You're in healthcare. What's the state of healthcare security? I said, oh, I got it. Okay. Well, I'm not throwing any stones. I'm not going to name anyone. But it is possible that someone may be infiltrating the healthcare industry kind of globally. And they're going to do it through connected medical devices. This is a very bold statement. And I want to give some context around kind of our thinking and our research. Take this, for example. In October of 2012, this is quite some time ago, the U.S. House of Representatives actually passed a resolution, and they recommended that U.S. companies ban or stop using equipment from a couple of well-known, very, very well-known, very, very big Chinese manufacturers, two of them listed here. And what the House committee said, what the Intelligence Committee said, was they were concerned about these companies working with their government, and there's a potential for espionage. Okay, that was 2012. Well, 2017, let's fast forward, didn't really solve any problems. Turns out we had another federal agency, the Federal Trade Commission, actually took D-Link to court, another Asian manufacturer, and said, listen, this manufacturer is producing stuff that is not secure and shipping it all over the United States. Turns out the FTC lost. What the courts ruled is the court said, listen, you can't hold a manufacturer liable just because they're putting out bad equipment. Just don't buy it if you don't like it. So that really kind of fizzled. Nothing happened. What happened in 2008? I know that some of you on the webinar today probably will disagree with this, and I understand. I'm still on the fence personally. But Bloomberg ran a really great article on what they called the big hack. This was how potentially the Chinese, through their relationship with Supermicro, the government, had infiltrated major U.S. companies like Amazon and Apple, even perhaps some of the federal agencies. And so the CIA was involved in this. It's still ongoing. Some people say it happened. Some people say it's a conspiracy theory, not quite sure. But I think at the end of the day, it calls, what it brings to everyone's attention is the fact that there is something going on, right? We're seeing a systematic pattern develop, okay? And then most recently, in 2019, the current administration, right, the president signed an executive order actually finally banning Huawei. And now, in your organization here in the U.S., if that's where you're based, or Canada, you're not going to be using this equipment. So what we see happening is the reason that this is going on is there is a concern, a huge concern about other foreign governments basically impacting our supply chain. So that's the argument. So let's dig into this a little bit more detail, okay? So I want everyone to consider the following. This is based on research that we've done. Many of you that work in a hospital, you're a provider, probably have a vendor called Stryker. Now, I am not a surgeon, okay, but I have learned a lot about their stuff. They make all these cool instruments, all these surgical instruments. And my understanding is these surgical instruments are all FDA approved, right? They can take these instruments and use them on patients, and they're safe, and they've been tested. That's good. That's good for everyone involved, right? However, What some of you may or may not know is Stryker also produces this piece of equipment, and I really like this one. It's called the SDC Ultra. But the difference is this one is not FDA approved. So how did that happen? Well, this doesn't go into your body. You see, what this does is when you're using Stryker equipment to do endoscopic surgeries and you have a camera embedded on those tools that are in the patient, those images are actually transferred real-time and recorded on this unit. So for that reason, what Stryker did is they literally just bought a Windows PC, it's running Windows 2008 in most cases, and let you put it in the OR. No approval needed. What I love about their equipment, though, is it runs this web service, which is now vulnerable to a pretty nasty Microsoft bug. They haven't patched it. They're not going to. They're not going to patch it because, well, they don't know how to. If they do, they risk breaking the software, and they're talking about upgrades. It's a big mess. Challenge is you probably didn't know about that, and your biomed team probably didn't know about that. And so that's really one of the issues we're wanting to solve. We'll come back to this. I want you to think about this. Why do endpoint solutions fail? Everyone says, oh, it's a Windows computer. I'm just going to install McAfee or Trend or Sophos or Symantec, whatever, Silence on it. Okay, let me back up. This equipment is manufactured by Stryker and sold to you as a Stryker appliance. So you have no access to it. You have no login. There's no administration access to it whatsoever. You simply get to use it as utility. It's not made technically by Stryker. It's made by the lowest cost Chinese or Taiwanese manufacturer they could find. So if you look up the MAC address, it's not going to say Stryker. This is why folks like Forescout and others simply can't help you. They don't know what's on your network. We're going to come back to that. This, I think, is pretty cool. So I have actually a good friend who did some work over at Intuitive Surgical years ago. He did not work on the Da Vinci robot. But this thing is this is a masterpiece. I mean, I've heard stories from folks that have either operated with it or been operated on by it, and it is really cutting edge technology. And not just what Da Vinci can do, but what other manufacturers are doing as well. And these are very well tested devices. I'm a huge fan of them. However, take a look at Exhibit B. In their user manual, they have, I don't think you get the surgeon with it, maybe they do, I don't know, but you get the robot, and then what's this thing on the right? I call it the Tower of Power. I mean, it looks like a video screen of some sort. Now, there are a bunch of components under those. Not quite sure what that is. So my team and I dug into it. We wanted to know more about what that Tower of Power was. Well, here's what I can tell you. From Intuitive Surgical, this is what it looks like. Now, I'm not going to bore you with trying to explain this. I'm still trying to understand this. But I think what it means is something like this. In the top left-hand side, you have this hospital OR operating room, and you have the Da Vinci robot. According to that first line in the top left, it makes an outbound connection through your firewall to the internet to Intuitive Surgical. Perfect. But the question really is, what's that machine at the bottom doing? That thing's also connecting into the cloud. That's not at your office. That's some assistance team. Okay, fine. But what do these double arrows mean, right? That should concern you. Well, let me answer that question. According to the documentation, the Da Vinci robot actually will make 2 outbound HTTPS connections. Those are the IP addresses I've listed. And as I've highlighted, the Da Vinci robot will make all the outbound connections. They'll establish them so Intuitive Surgical can track back through into your network. Hence, no firewall rules needed. So the minute you put that Da Vinci robot on and you deploy that correctly, at that point, Intuitive Surgical, every employee, every intern, anyone, every contractor, anyone that could gain access to Intuitive Surgical's network now has access to your network. Full unfettered access to the Da Vinci system. They didn't tell you that. So we'll talk about why that matters. So sometimes I go and I talk to people and I feel, honestly, a little bit like this. And I'm not trying to sell a fridge to someone that doesn't need it. But we want them to be informed. We want to help out where we can. So let's look at a couple of things we've seen. I always recommend when I talk to folks, you should trust the technology you have. You should trust the people that you have. But there's nothing wrong with verifying everything you're told. Just because someone says something was done, or a vendor, including us, say we've done something, it's always safe and quite frankly, smart to verify. There are a couple people that probably could have used that advice. 2016, right? We all remember Mirrorbot. Almost brought down the internet, right? Hit a bunch of dying DNS servers. The question is, how did all these cameras get infected, right? They're not just all home cameras, right? And these, a lot of them are corporate cameras installed in buildings like yours. So the question is, IT, last time I checked, those ceiling-mounted cameras I'm showing you, I haven't seen a big ladder in IT's workspace. You guys don't mount these things on the ceiling, right? It's facilities that does that. In essence, what IT has become is you've become the vehicle, the conduit for distributing power or network services to the rest of the organization. It's a utility. So you don't know what's in your network. Okay. Oh, this was a fun one, this casino. I think these guys are getting drugged through the mud. Rightfully so. I mean, it was a good idea. I love aquariums. I mean, I had a betta fish. We called him Spiky. Spiky didn't do so well. I think my daughters and I need to work on our pet management skills. So, but anyhow, this casino had a very sophisticated aquarium, saltwater aquarium, very nice aquarium. And it basically got hacked. Well, let's talk about what happened. This is what it looks like. I tell people, and they're trying to envision how the aquarium gets hacked. Okay, this is how it works. That is an aquarium controller. What's so great about it is you can see all the connectivity. I mean, it has power, it has all these sensors. It also has a hardwired Ethernet connection, and it has Wi-Fi built in. And the best part about it is the manufacturer does put a password on it. So anyone who says these don't have passwords, they're mistaken. As you can see, it's admin and 1234. So probably not the best password, but you know, that's what they choose to use. So this is basically a Linux kernel that runs on these Apex Aquarium controllers, and once you get into it with 1234, you then own the device. From there, you can install any type of kit or framework you want to, and you can now perform reconnaissance within the infrastructure. At that point, you move around laterally within the infrastructure. You can pick up data, store it on the Apex controller, and then exfiltrate it out at nighttime, which is exactly what the attackers did in this case. I think the casino would have liked to have known this was on their network, their production network, and the fact that maybe someone forgot to change the password and left it 1234. These are injectors. Any of you folks that do imaging work within your facilities are probably familiar with them. This particular one is made by Bear. 2017, it was hit by ransomware. I want to explain this one because this is near and dear to my heart. And I talk with a lot of CIOs, and there's this frustration with what is happening because it is preventable. And so I wanted to break it down. So the issue with the injector is the following. This. You can see the MRAD system. You can see the ransomware screen. I'm sure all of you have probably seen this somewhere before. Hopefully not in your own environment, but I'm sure you're familiar with it. And basically what happens is these injectors have control units. Typically they're Windows-based PCs, whether they're from Hewlett-Packard or Dell or some other similar manufacturer, running an OEM copy of Windows. And there lies the problem, because that Windows operating system is not and cannot be a part of your domain. It doesn't work that way. It's an appliance that's provided, in this case, by Bear. Could be GE Healthcare, could be any number of manufacturers. And so you're at the mercy of the manufacturer to patch it, which they don't. See, the problem is they patch it, then they have to recertify all the software and the equipment through the FDA, and that becomes a bit of a challenge for them, both time-consuming and it's expensive. What is most interesting about this, and I tell customers, is we did an analysis and we asked ourselves, how did the ransomware get in? It was most likely through the SMB file share. I've listed that as a point of entry. Port 465. What was interesting about that is you can block it. If you have the right technology and you understood what this was on your network, you understood this wasn't an HP PC, but rather the MRAD system, MedRAD system, you would have the ability and you could block inbound access, SMB access, without affecting the quality of the functionality of the unit whatsoever, and eliminated this threat altogether. Don't even have to worry about Bear to release a software update. So there are things that you can do, and that's kind of what we advocate. I think the FDA refers to that as a compensating control. The FDA has said that even though these problems may occur, and even though you may have vulnerabilities, as a provider, you have a responsibility to implement what they refer to as compensating controls. Raise your hand if you were visited by the FBI in 2018. Okay. Well, I won't go into details, but they probably didn't publish this. This information that you're seeing here wasn't made available to anyone in particular. In fact, in full disclosure, most of our research, in fact, all of it around orange worm, came from Symantec. They actually did a very good job with their research, and I was pleased with a couple folks on their team that did this work. But orange worm is scary. First of all, we know the following. We know that this person or persons or state, not sure who it is even, is targeting X-ray and MRI machines. They're targeting imaging systems. The problem is no one knows how they're getting in. That's the challenge. The other challenge is no one knows what they are doing. The thinking is it's reconnaissance, but who knows? And they were very, very selective in their targets, targeting high-value healthcare organizations, academic institutions, and the like. So most people don't know about this. And so I only bring it up because if you don't know about these problems, then how are you going to address them? Anyone been keeping up with crypto mining lately? This actually surprised me. I feel like as the value of Bitcoin goes down, the value of crypto mining goes down, but apparently that's not true. I think people are still out to make money. Samsung, just yesterday I think it was, I was reading, and just yesterday Samsung said their customers should scan their own TVs. Now, you guys can probably tell from the vantage point here that on my laptop in front of me, I'm actually in a conference room with a smart TV on the board. This is a, well, I'm not going to tell you which manufacturer it is, but this smart TV has the capability of being hijacked because it does run an Android OS. So it can be hijacked and it can be used for crypto mining. Who cares, right? Crypto mining. Well, put this into perspective. Take the number of Android-based or Linux-based devices you have on the network. Multiply by $247. That's what your energy bill could be for a standard TV or something like that, that is crypto mining 24/7, 365. The numbers get big. You have the ability to lose a lot of money, and that money is non-recoverable from the utilities. So not to mention the fact that all your data could be exposed, and the device itself may be unusable because someone's hijacking it. It's coming out of Michigan. I like Michigan. It's a great place. Been there a couple times. Called Code Blue. I think that's the name of it. Code Blue makes some really cool equipment. Many of you probably have this Code Blue equipment. What they do, in the parking garages of hospitals, you know, if there's a patient that's in distress or there's an emergency, they can go to one of these speakerphones and just push the button. It connects them directly with building security. It's good stuff, high quality equipment. I like it. The problem is this. I asked one of my customers, I said, how often those buttons get pushed? And they said, well, we don't know, but not that often. Okay, fact number one, it's IP-based. Yes, it runs over the IP network. Fact number two, it runs a Linux kernel. So what that basically means is, because it's not used very often, someone could absolutely infect the device, use it for crypto mining, and when it does need to be used, guess what? You won't be able to use it because 100% of CPU is tied up in crypto. So you just don't know, and I think that's the really scary part, is there's not a light that goes off that says this device has been hijacked. So that's always a concern. So I'm going to show you some more examples, but what about Securolytics, as Steve said? Now, it's simple. We thought we should provide customers real-time discovery visibility, and the key is control, right? You probably have some discovery and visibility capabilities today, but control across all connected devices. Yes, our focus is on connected medical. But as I described with the code blue devices, we have to look in the cameras. We have to look at building automation. You know, one of the critical things in hospitals I've noticed is hot water. It seems obvious to me. I mean, I'm not a physician, I'm not a clinician, but that's critical. And so so many hospitals have boiler systems. And what I see happening now are the plant management and the facilities management are taking these boiler systems and IP enabling them so they can control them. So their team can monitor these boiler systems and these hot water pumps off-site or from different locations or after hours. So there's this huge benefit to the team and the facilities group to have that type of visibility. But guess what? We just IP connected something that wasn't IP connected, you know, a year ago. So that's some of the challenges we run into. So let's jump into some data here. And if you have any questions, raise your hand. I'd love to show you. So what you're looking at now is a dashboard. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I have to admit, I do get pretty excited when I show customers some of the things that go on. So the other day, I decided to go on to Amazon. I'm sure all of you love, well, there are probably some Amazon phones fans here. And I bought this little IoT device. It's a power outlet. And I'm going to tell you why I bought it. Well, first of all, it was $8, okay? And my wife wasn't going to get mad if I bought something, for $8, so she was fine with that. But the real reason I bought it is because I'm talking to our customers, and they are always looking at ways to save money. And what I'm learning is with all the devices these hospitals have, it's expensive to power them. And where they want to go is if they can turn off devices when they're not in use, there is a material savings for providers. And so they're exploring, how do they put smart power systems in place. This is a perfect example. Imagine having a hospital room tied into your EMR system. As soon as that patient is entered into the EMR system and that room is assigned, everything lights up. But when they check out or moved out, everything shuts down. I mean, there are cost savings. Just one about this. First of all, this is manufactured by a company called Hutu. We know that. The MAC address doesn't match it, but it runs as BusyBox Linux. Okay, BusyBox is a lightweight version of Linux. Here's the problem with it, well, among others. The first problem is this has a telnet service, and this telnet service is unprotected, meaning it has default credentials, admin, and there's no password. So, of course, we did what any reasonable person would do, is we went in and we tried to change the password. Guess what, folks? You can't. It's not designed for that. So we're struggling with this problem because our Wi-Fi key is now on this device. Fortunately, you can see it's hooked into a lab. Is on the device in clear text. We can't lock this thing down. It just can't be done. There are no software upgrades, no patches. This is how it works. Okay, we're stuck with it. Okay, fine. I'll deal with that. Now, you probably do what we do or want to do what we do, but we threw it into our lab and we just let this thing run for a little while. Okay, so we decided to capture traffic from it. Right? Let's just see what would happen. Here's a 30-day view of DNS traffic from the device. Not so bad. The thing has made 394 DNS requests. Imagine, again, correlating all this data in real time, taking any device and seeing it. Okay, makes sense. A little spurt in traffic here beginning of June, looks like. Okay, went to a couple sites, went to, it looks like a site, maybe calling home, went to Baidu. Does anyone know what Baidu is? Baidu is actually one of the 10, I think it's like the 6th most visited site in the world. It's a Chinese search engine. Cool. Wait, why is this thing going to Baidu, by the way? Why is it going to the Chinese search engine? I can't figure this out. Okay, whatever. But why is it then going to Google.com Hong Kong? I mean, isn't Baidu a search engine? Why does it need to go to a search engine? So we're struggling with why that happened. Okay, fine. We'll let that go. So let me show you something else. Let's go back a little bit further here. I was showing a 30-day view. I'm going to go back. Let's key in, instead of 6, let's key in 5. Okay? So we'll see if we can't go maybe a a month further back. I'm going to see if I may have something interesting here for you. Let's see. We're going to go back. Oh, apologize. I'm going to go back to April 1st, and let's see. It may kick me out here. But we'll pull back a little bit more data from this this particular device. But what happens, Steve, while we're kind of waiting for this to load here, is it ends up doing, it's not making 394 DNS requests in a month. It goes and starts making 40 or 50,000 DNS requests. And so look at that. Now, I think there are a lot of IT folks on the phone here. Now, if someone needs to explain to me, because we haven't figured this out yet, how in the heck this thing can make, per day, per hour, 6,000 DNS requests. How can it query a particular site 1.6 million times? Okay, it's odd, not typical, and you can see these spikes. And so this thing gets software updates just like your intuitive surgical robot. This thing makes, look at this, an outbound HTTPS connection. It's persistent. I'm going to pull back a little bit of time so you can see it. But the key here, and really what I want to articulate to everyone, is that visibility is good. When you take a device, imagine. Okay, it's a little bit of data, so we'll kind of show what's going on. But imagine correlating all your NetFlow data. Imagine correlating all your DNS logs and having it available at a moment's notice here in the UI. Okay, so that's what we do. So that's a little bit about this particular device. So that's just a power outlet. Okay. When we start to look at other problems, many of you have PACS system, PACS. These are imaging systems for X-rays. And what we see happening, and it's frustrating for our customers, it's frustrating for us because it doesn't work well for anyone, is people put these things in place, like the Synology NAS drives, and through a series of just 1 or 2 clicks, all the PACS data accidentally gets synchronized to the user's personal Google Cloud Drive or Dropbox. Just 2 clicks. The problem customers have is singular. Customers can't block Google. Your firewall, what are you going to do? Block Google for these drives? Let me show you. So we're going to go into here, and I'm just going to filter by device types. Let's look for storage. STOR. Okay, here's a desktop storage device. Here's a disk station. The disk station's been here for about 7 months. It runs a number of different services, FTP, HTTP, all these wonderful things. Okay, so that's fine and dandy. But this bandwidth fence is really the key. Basically what happens is we track over time. We track how much bandwidth a particular device is using. We build patterns, and after a while, we take our statistical pattern and we identify when there is some type of anomaly. So I'm going to go back a little bit further here, and I'm going to show you the anomaly that I'm talking about. So we're going to go back to first of the year. So let's go back to November, and let's filter through, let's say, January 31st. Okay, and hit save, and let's just take a look at byte count. Okay, a little bit more, 1.15 megs, not too much, but the key here is I want to show you the pattern that builds when we do this. We track how much data goes out. So when we see a user talking to Google Cloud, not a big deal. But when we see an imaging system, a PACS system, there you go. You see the spike. I think everyone sees it on their screen. Should be pretty obvious. We actually synchronize this on purpose to Google. And this particular if I hold my mouse over it, my math is right, 146 megs of data. That's a decent, 146 gigs of data, looks like. I'm sorry, 146 gigs of data. Fair amount of data. We synchronize the whole thing to Google Cloud. When we see a device like this, we can actually shut it down and prevent it from doing it. So let's talk about what happens. So anyone can find these things, right? We have some unique technologies. But the key is, let's talk about that Hutu, and let's talk about this. When we see something misbehaving, we use 802.1x network access control, which no other vendor on the market can integrate like us. Not a single one out there. and we call it SmartBlock. And SmartBlock has learned what the device is, and it understands how the device should function. Turns out, most of you on the phone, if you have a intuitive surgical robot, have one or two. Well, we see lots of them because all our customers have one, so we might see 50 to 100 of them. We learn over time how things work. We capture data from you that you choose to send us, like DNS and DHCP data, NetFlow data, things like that, and we understand what ports and protocols are used. Then we can, using an ACL, using 802.1x, we can immediately and dynamically drop a policy down. So let me show you how it would work. So we come in, and all of a sudden we see a device on the network. Let's take, again, I'm going to use my Wi-Fi power outlet as example, but we can certainly use anything. We're going to use, in this case, why don't we just use this access point that we have sitting in one of our labs. This is just an access point we have. We purposefully set up this access point so it was running default creds on FTP, SSH, and Telnet. Okay? Those services are not required for this device to function. In fact, they should have been shut down. So let's imagine it's some type of medical device that's running services that are not needed, that are vulnerable. With SmartBlock in place, one click of SmartBlock will analyze what the device is and immediately enforce a policy using 802.1x network access control, drop to the switch, wired or wireless, a policy that will prevent any access to FTP, SSH, and Telnet right now. Done. Problem solved. This means an attacker who's on your network will no longer have access to this device on those ports. Now, customers ask me all the time, like, well, V, what if I need SSH? Okay, I get it. It's 80-20 rule. There are sometimes devices where you need to communicate. We can't shut down the port. We won't shut it down if you need it. And that's where we'll talk about some of the capabilities Steve and his team have to help provide guidance and help you with segmentation and help you with remediation. So you will encounter that, but 80% of the time, we can effectively, through one click, shut down the ports. When your team fixes the problem, right, you let the ops team know, you let facilities know, we'll go back, we'll check, we'll verify it's been fixed, and once the green lights have been received, guess what? We'll open it back up. We'll dynamically push these policies as needed. And that's really what sets us apart. And I think for the first time, and I know I'm running short on time here, so I'll wrap it up so we have a few minutes for questions. But for the first time, customers of ours can go home and feel good that they have a handle on what is on their network. They have a handle on how it's operating, what it's doing, and not only when it's misbehaving, but they have the ability to take control of the device and do something about it. And I think that's been the fundamental difference. I have a customer, and they told me at the beginning of the conversation they had Cisco ICE. And I think it's an interesting product. I mean, I'm not going to say anything bad about ICE. I've used it. I think it does what they say it does. The challenge that I hear in talking to folks is they need a full-time staff to deploy and manage it. It is so complex. And if you have the resources to do it, if the Mayo Clinic is on the phone, and you guys have the resources and the money to do it, more power to you. But for the folks that don't have the resources and the expertise to deploy and manage it, that's where we come in, because it's plug and play. We don't affect your servers. We don't have to be on any of the PC LANs. We focus on the IoT devices. A customer's asked us before, Steve, can we work on non-medical devices? And the answer is yes. You've seen the technology. Yes, it can work on other types of devices as well. Not just medical IoT or connected medical devices. So if you want to have that conversation, I'm always happy to answer any questions you might have. With that, I will leave a couple minutes to see if there are any questions that come up. I might have a couple people on mute here, so you can potentially just raise your hand if you want to. I think that will work. Okay. Looks like we have a chat request here. Is your product an appliance or software only? Great question. It is only an appliance. The way our system works is Securolytics basically has a 1U appliance. This is a picture of what it looks like. We built it based on Tolera's processor. And so unlike other products on the market, we don't have Spectre vulnerabilities, ever, which is pretty cool. It's a 1U appliance, it's hardened, it does encrypt all the data, it does edge processing, and it also sends some of your log files, your non-private, non-PHI, non-encrypted data to us, and our AI engine kind of goes through it. And we fully disclose and show you all the data that we collect. But that's a big thing. I don't want packet captures. I mean, look at what happened with Equifax. They decided to become the vault of everyone's private information, and they couldn't hold on to it. So we said, well, we think we're very secure. Let's not hold on to customer data. Let customers who understand how to protect their own data, let them hold on to the private stuff. So yeah, we take some non-private data, literally like DNS logs, and send that up to our cloud, and we show that to you. Okay, thanks, Mike, for that question. Any other questions for us today? Okay, well, we're going to stick around for a few minutes. Oh, here we go. Does the store full packets or just look as it goes by? It actually does neither, okay? Packets are yours. I don't want to collect them. The way it effectively works is, well, you know what, I have a great little slide I can show you on that. With Securolytics, when you connect this into your infrastructure, we just sit on a port. It is not a tap port. It is not a span port. We just sit there and we use some of our own technology, I refer to it as magic, to just look around your network. We casually look to see what's going on, and after we see what's going on, we use some of our own inspection technologies. We will use layer 3 technologies to connect outbound and look at your devices. We will use DNS information to help us build a puzzle, kind of complete the puzzle and understand what you have in place. But we don't collect packets. And people kind of look at me and they say, well, V, how do you do it without collecting packets? And the answer is, this is the technology we built. It's magic. And if you're willing to at least let me use the term magic in our first conversation, I think you'll be happy. But yeah, we don't collect any packets. We simply look at your DNS logs. We look at your DHCP logs. And the appliance will connect occasionally using port safe inspection to your devices via TCP and UDP to just look to see what's going on. We do not DOS stuff. We don't load test stuff. Perfectly safe to work with your GE, Becton Dickinson, Stryker, all your medical equipment, electrocardiograms, testing equipment without any issues at all. Hopefully that's helpful. Does it interfere with devices? It's safe. Yeah, no, it's like I said, perfectly safe on medical devices. You look at technologies like Rapid7 and Tenable, and again, a lot of respect for those vendors. I think they've done a great job with different technologies, but they are designed to beat up services, right? You can't afford to take an Alaris infusion pump offline. You can't afford to take some lab equipment that's running blood tests offline. So yeah, we don't DOS anything. We don't beat up services. We just take we call it port safe inspection. We take a very quick, easy, soft look at stuff. So where does the historical data you have come from? Good question. So let's look at that, and I'll show you an example. So remember, we are collecting your DNS and DHCP logs. This device will do edge processing, and after it finishes doing the processing, at that point it's actually going to, let's click on Microsoft DNS for example. After it does the edge processing, it'll actually send us the data. Here you can see a couple interesting, nothing that interesting, a couple packets to, let's say, Microsoft, for example, DNS requests. This is precisely what we store. You're looking at it. And we can store it for a period of time. Customers can dictate what their retention schedule is. And we use this data over time. We correlate it in real time with the device that made the query, and that's how we build a complete picture of what's going on. So, for example, we see, I'm going to go over here, and we're going to take a look at an IoT device. We're seeing this in a lot of rehab facilities now, and these are the smart bicycles and smart treadmills. And so we have a Peloton device over here. And so let's go look at some exercise equipment. This is a Peloton bike. It's a spin bike with a Android tablet on top. The Android tablet is manufactured by Texas Instruments, or at least the NIC card, the chipset is. Has no open ports. Okay, nothing's open. So you can't ping it. You can ping it. You can't telnet to it, connect to it. But using our own technologies, what DNS and DHCP, we've learned this thing is running Android 4. We have also learned over time, and this is a really good example. I'm going to pull back a 7-day view here. You can see how it makes DNS requests. You can see how we correlate every single request. It's a little bit of a long time period, I think, for me to show you a nice graph. I'm going to go back. How about going to go back just 2 days, if that's okay. The graph will look a little bit prettier. There we go. Okay. So we actually correlate. You can see that the DNS requests made per hour. You can see we can track where it's going. Yes, this one's connecting to Facebook. It's going to Peloton Cycle, a couple tracking sites and the like. But we store the data again. Customers choose a retention period, but this is specifically what we store within the cloud. So non-PHI type data. There was a question: does your appliance's operation impact overall network performance in a noticeable way? The answer is no. We have never seen or heard from any customer that it impacts the network. The device itself does have both 1 gig and 10 gig ports on the front. Interestingly, fun fact, the reason we built 10 gig ports in is not because we need to consume that much data, but some customers put us into switches and they only have 10 gig ports. And so they needed to make sure we had the ability to connect into their infrastructure in a scalable way. So that's why we have devices with 10 gig ports, not because we need the 10 gig ports. Heck, I could probably work on a 10 megabit port. We'd probably be just fine. So yeah, not much network traffic at all. We do have customers in Europe. We do have customers in different parts of the world. And so bandwidth is very expensive in certain parts of the world. No issues at all. So everyone's been happy. Any customers integrate with the product with SIM? Yes, yeah, sure. Splunk, QRadar, logarithms, we can integrate with all those. It's not a problem. And I'll show you specifically how we do that integration, because people want to know that. First of all, the question that comes up is, okay, what are you going to send over to me? And there are really kind of 2 or 3 types of data we're going to send to you. The first thing is I'm just going to pull a CSV export from the UI so you can at least look at the data. But we actually do a dump. And so here on the screen you see a little bit of information. I'm just going to pull this up again so you can see it in a little bit more detail here. Let's just pull this back up here. Okay, here we go. Okay, so it's small. I get it. You won't be able to see it. Let me just share my do a new share here. Let's just do the entire screen. Okay, here we go. So now you should see a text file. This is a raw dump. I don't want you to worry about it, but this is the type of level of detail that we'll send into QRadar, Splunk, Logarithm, Exabeam, whatever you might have. So rest assured that there is a fair amount of data that we can send into your system without any issues. We also have an API. And so some customers ask us if they can extract data from us, and the answer is absolutely. There are no issues whatsoever doing that. So you can certainly get data directly from our API as well. The next type of data that we send in, and we're proud of this, are the alerts that we generate. So when we do find a problem, so for example, what do I have here? I have default credentials that were found. Let me just show you how this works, because this is one of the most useful parts for customers. Is we send the data in raw text format like this. It's well formatted, so you can ingest it into your SIM right away, or your help desk system like Remedy, or ServiceNow, whatever you might have, and open tickets. And so everything will get pushed in. We are proud of the UI, but we realize operationally you need us to work with the tools that you have. So it's not a problem. Yeah, thanks for asking that question about SIM integration. With that said, like I said, I'll work with Steve. We'll get this webinar recorded and put online for everyone to use, so that it's available here in the next day or so. You can certainly send it to your colleagues. And if you have any questions, we'd love to chat. If there's a problem that we can help with, or you just want to hear what we see happening, or want to hear what other folks that we can share with you, what they've done, always happy to do that. If you have questions about your specific devices, what do you guys know about, Stryker? What do you guys know about GE Medical? Or, what do you know about this manufacturer? What are you seeing? We're always happy to share it. At the end of the day, as you saw in one of my first slides, I have 2 daughters. They're now 10 and 8. And I take them to the Children's Hospital when I have to in Atlanta. And so it's important to me that when they go in, that I also know that those devices are safe for not only my kids, but all the kids there. So we want to help. More than anything else, let us know. We're here. So again, thank you for making time. Feel free to share the presentation link as soon as we get out to everyone with your friends and colleagues. And Stephen and I will be here to answer any questions.
Yes, we will.
Thank you so much.
Steve.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.